Hi everyone, this is Alison Eskesen with Grow Asia. We are going to get started promptly because we know that it is quite a big chunk of time that we've asked for your day, and we are really excited to have you here on this Grow Asia webinar. I'm delighted to have with us Mark Kaplan from Unilever and Jackie Cheng from Facebook. As we get started, we thought we would open it up with a video that Unilever has commissioned to set the stage and help explain what we're trying to do.
The mFarmer initiative aims to remove the technological and economic barriers of access to the Internet and drive sectoral change using information exchange, transparency, and social networks.
Selama ini mereka lebih banyak memakai telepon itu hanya untuk menelpon dan SMS saja. Telepon yang mereka pakai, kawan-kawan petani kita ini pakai telepon yang biasa-biasa saja.
In my experience as a trainer, the farmers are keen to improve their lives and they understand that technology is a key enabler. mFarmer leverages Free Basics by Facebook on the Indosat Ooredoo network to provide farmers free mobile internet access to the content and applications.
Mereka itu banyak kehidupan di bawah. Kalau pendapatannya mereka ini sebenarnya di tingkat petani ini dia hanya gali lubang tutup lubang namanya. Nah, terus kepemilikan lahan juga itu sangat terbatas. Persoalannya adalah karena satu adalah kepemilikan lahan yang sangat kecil. Nah, terus yang kedua itu adalah soal pendidikan yang terbatas.
Because there is no price transparency from the factory to the farmers have a limited understanding of market prices. The farmers in this village are paid in cash. Technology will give the farmers access to price transparency, enabling them to track market prices and negotiate better prices for crops. This would include access to market information, training and education to improve their productivity and yields, mobile money to receive and make direct payments to enable farmers to be part of the formal financial system.
Harapan kita yang besar sekali sebenarnya ke depan, kita berharap petani itu dia mempunyai pabrik sendiri dia. Mereka mempunyai kebun secara kolektif.
The mFarmer initiative is a multi-stakeholder partnership between Unilever and Grow Asia and has been endorsed by the government of Indonesia's Office of the Vice President in partnership with the National Team for the Acceleration of Poverty Reduction.
Wonderful. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video. It's brief, and yet we think it outlines both the challenges that so many of us know smallholders face, as well as how we can come together and use an open source mobile platform and mobile technology to really reach out to smallholders and try to address some of their needs and their concerns. You know, as partners of Grow Asia, we are delighted to have you here. Just so you know who else is on the call, we have about over 100 partners across the 5 different target countries participating on this call. So there's a lot of interest in how do we think about using mobile technology as a tool to continue to reach out to smallholders. We are going to get started as people continue to log in. There's a couple things I wanted to let you know. You are more than welcome to type in questions into the questions box. We will see them and we will try to address them in real time, but at the very end of the session we will also have an opportunity for questions and answers. So please feel free to have there be interaction. Also, before I hand it off to Mark and Jackie to talk about what Unilever is already doing and as an example of what could be done if others want to follow suit, I just wanted to take a moment and say, you know, from Grow Asia's perspective, why are we exploring an open source mobile platform, and where do we think the benefits could be both for partners as well as for smallholder farmers? Well, to give you a little context, we raised the idea as an open source mobile platform back in Phnom Penh at the Grow Asia Forum in 2016. And we had many of the companies and NGOs really talk about where they thought the need was and where they thought the opportunity was. And that gave us bandwidth to say, let's go and explore it. We also raised the idea of a mobile platform at the Practitioners Workshop in Singapore in October of 2016 to really get your feedback for those people who are working on the ground of, do you think this would be useful? Where do you see the interest? What are some of your hesitations? So that as we started to think about how can we design something that makes sense and works for both the partners who are implementing value chain projects as well as the smallholders. And what we came away with was the idea that initially, because we have smallholders that are already engaged in day-to-day project implementation, we can use the platform and the ability to provide knowledge as an opportunity to reinforce what farmers learn in a training course. But then, perhaps more importantly, is that we can start to use the platform and use mobile technology as a way to increase the number of farmers that we're able to reach, to able to really scale the impact of the projects that you're having on the ground. And we think that, similar to the way we approach value chain projects, that doing this through a multi-stakeholder approach makes a lot of sense. That it not only allows us to share costs, to share risks, but to really get that critical mass that's essential to have mobile really have, or to really unlock the power that mobile has. What we're hoping, and Mark will talk about what Unilever's intentions are, is that through this open source mobile platform, we will be able to help farmers to improve their access to knowledge, improve their access to finance, improve their access to inputs, and most critically, improve their access to markets. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Mark Kaplan from Unilever.
Thank you. Thanks, Alison. Thank you, everybody, for participating, both on behalf of Unilever and personally, having gone to a couple of smallholder farms. Thank you all for your commitment to the project and for taking the time to learn about this. So what the vision from what we had discussed here in Singapore from the Practitioner Summit that I attended really took away that the common platform intends to improve the smallholders' profitability, but also productivity across a sustainable supply chain. So it really both helps uplift the smallholders as well as improve the business case for everybody on the phone here right now. So on the agenda, what we're hoping to do is we'll set the stage a little bit for the discussion. Again, is to reinforce Alison's point, while I am with Unilever, this is an industry initiative. This is a Grow Asia initiative. And we're here, again, as Alison said, really just leaning forward and supporting the vision for the project. Then we'll sort of reintroduce the principles of the platform. Jackie's here to educate everybody on Facebook and Internetorg's role in the program. And then we'll carry forward with some more details and then answer some questions. So in setting the stage, again, it's an industry initiative that we've been leading in partnership with Grow Asia. This is the second meeting. So we also had a follow-up meeting in Jakarta in October of last year. And Grow Asia had presented this with the PISA Agro Board as well. The intention has been to establish committees at the group and country levels to make sure that decisions are made as a group. But everybody needs to, who wants to, have a say in how this grows, needs to show up, both, if not in person, at least in principle and with contributions. Meaning contributions in terms of ideas. The approach to mFarmer, we've had the good fortune of receiving the endorsement of the government of Indonesia as our kickoff market. So we will be, we'll have their support as we proceed to deploy across the country. We're hoping to receive similar support from the other governments as well. mFarmer is a Grow Asian brand, so farmers will have a consistent destination to engage with everybody here across countries, across mobile carriers, and we can really create a community of smallholders, to reflect the community that's on the call right now. mFarmer, again, it's meant to be a common portal, so a site, a download, but to connect in other applications to provide the capabilities. This is not meant to compete with individual apps. It's meant to actually distribute individual apps. So many of us, including Unilever, have developed and are working on in partnership with other companies to produce technologies and applications for capabilities that we particularly want to see, user experiences that we want to deliver to our smallholders and cooperatives across our supply chain. This is meant to increase access to those, to be clear. The vision for this is to be a non-exclusive, crop and market agnostic, smallholder-centric platform. So this is not meant to be a large enterprise tech system. It's meant to integrate with and augment our enterprise technologies. Again, it's meant to be for smallholders and for cooperatives. And it's meant to optimize productivity, profitability, and environmental sustainability at that level. So this diagram up there, hopefully, while we have some of the boxes filled in terms of the capabilities by category, this is just illustrative. So if there are specific capabilities that aren't described, that doesn't mean that they're excluded from either participation or being included. So, Jackie.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Alison. So I'm Jackie from Facebook, and I work on Internet.org, which is our broad initiative towards connectivity. So just to kind of get a little bit started to provide you background, connectivity is really what drives Facebook and what Mark Zuckerberg, our CEO, truly believes to be the vehicle for empowerment. It gives people voice, and it also opens up opportunity. But one of the things we all realize is that today there's only so many people who are connected. In fact, 2/3 of the world's population have yet to be connected. That's over 4 billion people. So that's why Internet.org is core to our technology roadmap over the 10 years from now for Facebook. So through Internet.org, we're working to solve core issues, whether it's social, economic, and technical barriers towards connecting everyone. This is really done through investments in new technology, but most importantly through partnerships with telco, government, and many like-minded organizations and communities, which includes Unilever and Grow Asia. So the one thing we do want to make sure is that while we're developing many solutions underneath Internet.org, and some of the solutions you may have heard, including Express Wi-Fi, which is our affordable access hotspot solution that's already being rolled out in countries like India. We also have other solutions, including Aquila, which you may have heard, which is the drones beaming down Internet access. But for the purposes of today, we're going to focus on free basics because it's the primary vehicle for which mFarmer is being delivered to farmers free of data charge. And that's the important piece. So in terms of free basics, it's really a partnership between mobile operators where we're able to provide basic services that fall into categories like health, education, communication, and in this case, agriculture. And this is all free of data charge to people who are accessing it. We're available today in over 60 country and overlaps a majority of Grow Asia countries, including Indonesia, Philippines, Myanmar, and Cambodia. Because the program is non-exclusive and open to all operators, we're constantly adding new countries and new mobile operators. So a good example is the Philippines, where in fact we have 2 mobile operators active, both Smart and Globe. On the other side of the equation, content is a very critical piece to really ensuring connectivity, because that's the driver for why people want to come online. So what we are focused on in terms of really enabling stronger participation in a broader ecosystem is the Free Basics platform, which is open to any developer or website owner who wants to list their site for people who don't typically have the means to access it in a paid mode. Today we have over 1,500 services available and adding more each day. But as a developer, and I believe there might be some on the call or those who might be investing in developers, we strongly encourage you to submit your service. And I'm also happy to help if any of you guys have questions after. But as developers, there's a couple features that are worth pointing out and helpful to understanding how Free Basics work. The first is that we run through proxy, which means we do not cache websites. We do not host your content, and we do not host directly your traffic. We purely run as a proxy for people requesting to go to websites and providing them a path directly to that website. On top of that, we really focus on optimizing for low-end devices and network-constrained areas. And this is where we have technical guidelines in place that really help enable this to ensure that websites can run in environments where JavaScript isn't supported, Flash, iframe, and even video. So you can imagine for people in more remote areas and with lower-end phones, some of the first critical experiences is really surrounding an efficient one. And so we want to make sure that we're enabling that. On top of that, another thing that's critical to note is that privacy, user privacy is very important. We do not retain user navigation data past 90 days, which means how people traverse and go through different websites are all deleted off our servers. And this is to ensure that users retain that privacy. And because we run through proxy, you as a site owner would have that information. And then lastly, and most importantly, around security, we do support HTTPS, both on our Android and our site experience. So hopefully this gives you a high overview about Free Basics, which is just one of the many solutions that we're developing under Internet.org. For those on the call who may have more questions, or if you are developers or know developers who are interested in participating, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thanks. Thanks, Jackie. So now we'll talk about why this is important. Excuse me. If trying to put ourselves into the shoes of a smallholder, today they're paying retail for mobile, or they're not, but they would have to pay retail for mobile data, or members would have to sponsor that data, which becomes very expensive very quickly. They also typically will have to engage with different applications by company and by capability. And you've got to think to yourself, if someone is a digital, is new to the internet, how many apps are they really going to open and close and use? So, and then some apps work on feature phones and lower-end smartphones, and some don't. So, for mFarmer, what we're trying to do is make the services accessible, provide a single integrated access point for multiple forms of content and capabilities that are relevant to smallholders. This isn't to prescribe it to them, it's to give them an access point to their different options. So we're not prescribing to anyone on this call, or even a smallholder for that matter, what they should use. That sort of defeats the purpose of the internet in the first place. And then it's to enable this to be functional across devices and operating systems. We can't expect smallholder farmers to be technology experts. For that matter, we can't expect anyone on this call to be technology experts. And then secondly is the agility of a common platform. So how will we get to true scale in an affordable and expeditious way without a common platform strategy? Because without one, we're all going to be duplicating the same work and certainly not going to be moving as rapidly as we could be together. So sharing best practices, reducing and sharing costs, leveraging the best content. To Jackie's point earlier, content is so important to making these services relevant to farmers, not just from a stickiness standpoint or having them use the services, but actually get real impact and value from participating in this community that we're building. And then to enable access to finance through economies of scale. Through some discussions with banks, we found out that, we've had validated that it's important for them to have a critical mass of smallholders that are together in order to de-risk their access to finance and make it acceptable for their risk profiles. And then from a precision standpoint, are we realistically going to have robust and accurate data as an industry without a common platform? The implications of that would be that the synchronization and accuracy of the data across Croatia in a fragmented environment becomes extremely challenging. And then retrofitting that after the fact becomes not just challenging, but incredibly expensive as well. So who benefits here? Everyone really benefits from a common platform. So from a smallholders and business standpoint, really increasing the access enables us to connect directly with the smallholders. Then from a government and a business standpoint, that efficiency enables more sustainable supply chains and contributing to inclusive economic growth. From the civil society standpoint, it's really able to expand those services and gathering data around the behavior and impact to improve natural resource management and the sustainability of the environment. And then between the smallholders and civil society, we're really able to get increasing transparency for things like food safety and good agriculture practices. And then how do we make this happen? It's a gradual process of engagement, and these are not exclusive. So first and foremost is a knowledge transfer. It's whether or not we want to pool our resources and work together, or if you prefer, which is, of course, everyone's prerogative, to individually produce and digitize content and go at it on your own. Then it's accelerating the outreach. So we could reach out even to non-Grow Asia or working group partners who have a similar interest as we do in connecting with smallholders. Financial institutions, mobile networks are those who come to be top of mind. Facebook, for example, comes to be top of mind. And then transaction enablement. So this is really where we need to take ownership in our supply chains and enable this to happen. So we lead and fund the creation of the business-specific services that we do want, because while there are commonalities among us all, there are definitely specifics and proprietary content or capabilities or data or other trade secrets that we respectively want to maintain. And then as it relates to the common indicators across Grow Asia, the way that we would think about this going forward is that data would be anonymously shared to create composite indices and indicators for the different, the common KPIs. And so what are as we dig into some of these phases in more detail, What are some of the pros and cons here? So the pros of leveraging resources together is that we already have relationships built, either across our existing supply chain partnerships or companies who share a similar view on the industry. And sharing that content and sharing the costs. And then can we work with Grow Asia to co-fund some of that development to broaden the platform on behalf of everybody? And then this does not preclude the flexibility to integrate into proprietary systems like enterprises and any loyalty programs with your smallholders that you would want to build on top of a common platform. You know, I'll keep using Facebook as an example. Because you have a Facebook page doesn't mean that another person who owns a Facebook page gets to influence or see the data that goes through your page. So if you can think about it like that, what are some of the drawbacks of pooling our resources? Well, pooling our resources definitely shares content, and we do share. That's the principle behind it. And then the need to address the upfront data sharing, privacy, and liability concerns. It's a business conversation there. And what do we deem private and what do we want to share? Or we can individually go at it on our own. That enables a lot more flexibility, running at your own pace. Data is wholly owned and none of it's shared. But there are drawbacks to that as well. Bearing all of the cost of sourcing, the burden of sourcing, and the quality control risk behind that. You may need to develop additional content, and it assumes that the individual members have your own pool of farmers. Then the acceleration of outreach. So in one option, we can think about augmenting and leveraging existing field workers within the companies or NGOs or governments with digital trainers at an industry level. Or you can decide that we're going to individually fund, manage, and implement digital literacy trainings across the supply chain on your own and self-fund that. Then the transaction enablement on a step-by-step process. And again, these are not exclusive, although highly recommended. First and foremost is the systems integration. So if you have existing technologies or enterprise systems that you would like to make available, we would integrate that at the outset. And then it's to implement those capabilities. And then at the final step, it's the system goes live and the data starts to flow across the system. And then in steps, to consider whether or not you want to participate in a common platform, first and foremost, you have to decide if, or not, but determine the value of the primary benefits. Is this worthwhile for you? Is it valuable to increase contact with smallholders and provide them best-in-class tools across the industry or not? Do you have sufficient quality and quantity of capabilities and content? And then do you realistically have the experience, budget, and capacity to fund and maintain this on an ongoing basis? From past experience, one of the mistakes that I've often seen is the presumption that, yes, of course we can do this on our own. And then when the time comes and capacity is reached, removing and extracting something or shutting something down that's been made available to people and they've become dependent on actually has a detrimental effect than not having done it at all. And then determining the preferred approach. So again, participating partially is absolutely doable, and getting started small is something that we actually would recommend. So what content and capabilities do you want to share and what do you not want to share? That's the basic fundamentals of determining the preferred approach. And then assess the funding options. We've estimated costs to deploy smallholder pilots at around $50,000. simply because we're choosing to invest a little bit more up front to validate a little bit more of the options. So validating content, capabilities, and training at the same time, and how those things interrelate. So that can include the content optimization, the training, the systems integration, all of the aspects that we've previously discussed. But you can share those costs too. And then do you have your own tech vendors that you want to integrate? So that basically would wrap up the considerations for participation. And then getting started is relatively straightforward. So Indonesia is already active. Other countries can be activated within 30 days. And I would add that with Vietnam, which hasn't been launched on Free Basics yet, we are working to activate that through some of our telco partnerships directly. And we're planning for that to be available at sometime near the end of the second quarter. And so really to consider target villages, what's the location, the crop, how many farmers do you want to reach? Do you want to engage cooperative administrators, or you just want to choose to work with the farmers up front? Are there existing tech solutions that you'd want to integrate or consider? And then are there other stakeholders who have relationships that we need to educate as well? Yeah, and that's it. Thank you very much. So now we'll take a look at some of the questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you so much, Jackie. This is really helpful. We are open to answer questions, and some have already come in, so please feel free to continue to type them into the message box, and we'll see them on our side and simply go through them. To give you a few moments for us to read some of those questions and for Mark and Jackie to think about what their responses are, I guess I'll give you one analogy from somebody who's not a tech person. You know, when we think about why do we want this open source platform that's meant for farmers, we really think of it as that one-stop shop for farmers to find information around agriculture. And that allows for all the companies or working groups, if you want to pull your information, to be able to provide it. And it helps to organize what farmers will find when they go into Free Basics. That, as Jackie mentioned, there's 1,500 different websites or providers of content within Free Basics, so that if you're a smallholder and you come in, it'll actually be quite hard for you to find the information that you want without you knowing that you want it. And so having an open source platform allows for farmers to know, oh, if I want agricultural information, this is where I go. And then within that, you have a laundry list of different types of applications, which can be company-specific, as Mark described, as well as more public information. And I will turn it to Mark to answer perhaps question number 5 first, and then number 6. And so question number 5 is, how do we sustain connection between farmers' field work and the office work? And how can farmer organizations and farmers get access to finance from financial institutions? And just to add on to that, some related questions is, with regard to price information, how can we engage big corporations to provide their buying prices? And what would that look like? And could that look like a bidding system? And I'll let both Jackie and Mark think about them for a moment and see what kind of responses they might have. And I think Mark...
I was going to take number 1.
And I think, for what it's worth, Mark does represent Unilever, but I think he has a lovely purview of being able to take the Unilever hat off and speak, what from a tech standpoint is doable, as well as from a Unilever standpoint, what are they thinking?
Right. So I'm new to Unilever, so it's easy to take the hat off. How to sustain the connection between farmers and the office work and then get access to finance. So how to sustain the connection between farmers' field work and office work. I'll give a reference point from a previous experience I had before joining Unilever, working with smallholder fishermen in Indonesia. One of the big benefits that we found when we deployed mFish was that it actually dramatically improved the efficiency of how office work is done, because the NGO partner who we worked with was able to remotely use Messenger to remotely manage their group of smallholders, and that the inputs that they could get digitally augmented a lot of the manual enumeration that they had to do with clipboards and pencils. So both in terms of the efficiency of managing remote smallholders from a single point of contact to digitally gathering data to both more accurately get it directly from the smallholders and more efficiently input it into a database. And then how can we get access to finance from financial institutions is that putting together, it's really, from my understanding, and I'm not an expert in microfinance, but from the meetings that I've had, my understanding is we would put together the business case, and it comes down to a risk profile. Technically, how access can be gained is through mobile wallets. So we could integrate mobile banking into the platform and make it available.
And just to add to that, in terms of sustaining that connection, completely agree with you in terms of finding that digital means of connecting a person to an institution or to another person. I mean, in other scenarios, we've seen in the health space, one service like Baby Center, which is focused on really following the experience of new parents through the 9 months of childbearing, is that in order to keep that connection, what they do is they utilize messaging systems, whether it's SMS or Messenger as well, and continue that conversation at critical points within that family's experience. If you use that as an analogy, you can also imagine within a farmer forest cycle of crops, there must be critical points where you need to engage, and utilizing automated systems that have applied algorithms in place, utilizing the information you guys understand in terms of critical points of contact, could also be an efficient way of keeping that connection. And in terms of getting that financial institution integrated in, to your point, the mobile wallet, as you guys start to engage, you can build that profile. And in an asynchronous state where you always have this gap between a person who needs and the person who has, leveraging technology that can create that connection can create opportunities when you used to only rely on the fact that it was at that very moment that opportunity exists, versus now you can spread it over time based off the understanding of a person's needs and based on new opportunities and new financing options coming into place.
Right.
Well, and thank you both so much. That's very helpful. I think, when we start to think about how do you connect the farmer's field work and the office work, I think that there are a variety of different pathways, as both Mark and Jackie have indicated. And the question is once you decide that you want to do this, I think it's then us all collaborating and exploring what makes sense for the particular farmers that you're working with in your local country context, in the particular crop that you're focused on. So there is not one sole answer, but there are a variety of different answers that we can create together. One question that's been asked, which I think is critical, so let me ask that of Jackie first, is do farmers need smartphones to participate in Free Basics?
Yeah, so the beauty of Free Basics is that we designed it to really work for the lowest common denominator. And for those on the phone, hopefully all of you know that the lowest common denominator is a feature phone. This is also why we have certain technical guidelines in place for content, because of the fact that certain phones just do not have the capacity to run video. They do not have the capacity to run JavaScript. And so we want to ensure an experience for people who may not necessarily have the means to have the latest tech in phones. So hopefully this solution will cut across both device in terms of smart and also feature as well.
And I'll just go back to answering. So as far as the price information is concerned, that's going to ultimately be a business decision whether or not that's disclosed. But from a technical perspective, enabling a bidding system is absolutely doable. It's absolutely doable technically. The business decision is just something that has to be discussed, either as an association or on a company-by-company basis, I imagine. And then, can farmers on network operators not currently signed up to free basics still access the platform? Yes. As we discussed earlier, this isn't an exclusionary activity. So absolutely, mFarmer can be accessed outside of free basics. In some countries, there'll be other solutions. In some countries, it'll be working directly with the mobile network. So yes, and then for Vietnam, if the global coffee platform would like to pilot this system for coffee farmers, what will be the next steps? And the final page of the webinar, if you can reference that, we lay out some standard questions that we need to just as a starting point to engage with you to have that conversation on how would this go to market. And
I think just to add on that, those questions will help you to organize your thoughts and sort of prepare to say, what are we going to do? One of the other things you can also do is to reach out to Grow Asia. You'll have seen Shangwei Chia's email there. He can be your point person internally. You all will either know Reggie or Johnny and clearly Jenny. So you reach out to any one of us, and we can start to help shepherd you through that process and begin to really move from, yes, we're interested, to how do we actually implement.
And so the next question is, can farmers insert data in the platform as lessons, attending, yields, etc.? Absolutely. The capabilities that have currently been deployed into mFarmer include a learning management system that actually breaks down certification requirements into lessons and then aggregates those. And in the next phase, what we would see, and we only wanted to go so far as a proof of concept before getting input from everybody so that we would have so one of the philosophies that I go by of seeing is believing is that so we can have something to look at and get some initial feedback on the ground. But then what we would see is that learning management system could then reconcile back to either the cooperative or whomever is engaging and organizing that group of smallholders. But again, even that learning management system is not exclusive, and we would envision bringing on other capabilities providers with similar types of services. So then you can choose what suits you and your supply chain the best and your farmers best. There's a crop log that's already implemented. It's extremely basic, but we're dealing in a relatively basic environment. We'll be augmenting that with some traceability solutions that we've identified. But again, it's a non-exclusive approach, and we aim to have any qualified traceability solution and crop log solution implemented, so we have choices. And then how can we engage farmers to use mFarmer?
Mark, sorry to interrupt.
No,
perhaps it'd be helpful to clarify what information is currently on mFarmer that Unilever's already put in and which crops you're already focused on.
Sure, no problem. So we've started with palm oil, and Unilever has started. Unilever has started with palm oil and coconut sugar. And so we've broken down the RSPO P&Cs into lessons. And we have a crop log for both coconut sugar and palm.
So what I think is exciting about this is if you go to mFarmer, you'll be mFarmer.co, you will be able to go and see what Unilever's already done for those 2 crops, which will give you a sense of some of the possibilities, not the exhaustive list of what you could do, but at least what Unilever has decided they want to do. And so to Mark's point of seeing is believing, it can give you a sense of how you might want to use it, as well as all the different opportunities that could exist should you want to do this.
Right.
It starts to get to that question of, do you want to pool your data and do it as a working group, or do you want to do it as a single company?
And some of the in advance of folks looking at the starting point website, I want to emphasize again that it's a starting point, and what we've done is we wanted to get a proof of concept out there with a very small group of smallholders from each crop, so we can start getting feedback on the ground, and then start to refine the capabilities from there. And so how we engage farmers, as we were mentioning earlier, there are really two real ideas and options there. Is to either augment your existing field workers with digital literacy trainers that, and now here is a we with, I'll be speaking as Croatia, we can augment with digital literacy trainers, or we would suggest having digital and mobile literacy support alongside your field workers that you would fund and implement on your own. So we're catching up here.
So we will try to answer as many questions as we can. We have scheduled an hour in each of your calendars. We have so many more questions than we're going to be able to answer within this hour, but we will try to do our best, and perhaps we can group a few of them and answer some of the more questions that are common across many of the different working groups and country partnerships. And then for the other questions, we will post answers on the Grow Asia Exchange. And so we will let you know when that's available, so you can go and both find the recording of this webcast as well as the answers to your specific questions. Jackie, Mark, are there specific ones that you think we should answer as a group?
Yeah, I think particularly that we should address how will the system work in areas where there is no signal.
Yeah.
That would be a particular, because I'm sure that, yes.
Yeah, so ultimately with Internet.org, we're looking at different solutions in place, and the unique thing about Internet access is that there is no silver bullet in solving this. There will be areas where you're correct, signal is going to be intermittent and weak. But our hope is that as we develop new solutions like Express Wi-Fi, where we're focused on deploying hotspots, where in a lot of our testing has actually shown quite high quality, we love to experiment in new potential areas where we could look into that access. So I know it's not a definite answer, but I think it is a hope that we'll be able to continue to collaborate and identify ways to improve that signal. So in areas where free basics can work, you should definitely utilize it. In areas where there's other solutions in place, please use that as well. In areas where it could overlap in new projects, we'd love to work with you guys and explore if that's possible. Yeah,
and so I hope that also addressed questions like, can this be adapted to communities with zero access to technology? And so do we use one operator to access mFarmer? No, mFarmer is accessible across any carrier right now. The question is, do the farmers pay for mobile internet access or not? That also has different answers to it. So again, we're starting with free basics, but some telecoms have their own similar solutions, and there are other solutions providers out there on the market. that we're not, again, it's not meant to be an exclusive service. It's meant to be open. And I'll reiterate again that Free Basics is available on feature phones. So does a farmer need to have a smartphone? The answer is no. Can this be converted into an SMS platform? So the back-end apps can support SMS. What we're talking about here is a front-end presentation of those capabilities.
And the cost.
And the cost,
yeah.
Exactly. And you got to remember that SMS is expensive. So one of the really interesting value adds of working with Facebook on Free Basics is the access to use Messenger, which enables text-based interactions. And actually, you can use similar technologies that can power SMS to interact with online messengers as well. That way, they can have a similar type of text-based interaction without needing to pay for SMS if you desire to do so.
And I think to your earlier point, which is that ultimately this is a solutions mix. Even with Internet.org, we always encourage the collaboration with other solutions provider who is motivated to help close the connectivity gap. So in areas where perhaps you might have a scenario that you might have a partnership in place and you can leverage SMS, you should definitely go for that. If you're in a scenario where it's too costly or you don't have the right deal in place, you should evaluate all the different types of solutions. And to your point, Free Basics is just one. And hopefully you guys will be expanding that solution set to include many others. But I think ultimately it's to really point out that in cutting down the cost and the barriers to farmers, we really have to look for bridges to cover that cost. And if different providers, whether it's technology, whether it's operators, whether it's government-led, whatever solutions are out there, they should be utilized in order to help close that gap.
Yeah, and so in thinking about some of the other questions on how to design a pilot, I'll just broadly group like the term of the pilots and how to engage the farmers within it. Those are some of the reasons why we put out those two options if we want to come together as a group and implement some of these together to share those best practices, or if you choose to go at it on your own. So in grouping together, those are the benefits, is that we all learn from one another. And I'll use that to bridge to one of the other questions around privacy within the system. So as I mentioned earlier, imagine two routes of data, and one route of that data would be feeding your proprietary system. And it's a business decision on what data sets you choose to make publicly available to the Grow Asia common indicators, and then what data you choose to retain privately. So privacy is a big concern, and we all understand the value of data. And it's meant to be able to both participate as a group and retain your trade secrets. How to localize and tailor the content. So one of the really exciting benefits of Free Basics is that by its nature is localized. As a reflection of the telecoms that underpin it are as well. So yes, the content can be tailored by country. So mFarmer in Vietnam and mFarmer in Indonesia can have different content, and it absolutely needs to have different language in order to maintain its relevance. So that same methodology is applied to the content. So those 1,500 services, those 1,500 plus services are localized, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so because it's open in terms of the platform, there can be services included that represent different languages, but Typically, we see a lot of local developers submitting services that represent their local language, and usually that's what also bubbles up in popularity because it's relevant locally. And
so I'll address ongoing costs as well, as I think that's going to be a common concern. So Free Basics doesn't have a set cost associated with it. The ongoing operating costs for mFarmer aren't built into the common platform. The ongoing costs would be any bespoke or specific technologies that you choose to contract and integrate yourself may have ongoing costs, and those relationships may stay proprietary to your direct agreements with your own technology suppliers. So participating in mFarmer doesn't have any ongoing maintenance or operating costs in the nature of the common platform. The $50,000 is a suggestion. It's not a mandate. And so, in thinking about it from our standpoint, we use that funding for a very specific pilot and the specific learnings that we chose to get from it. And that's really how I would suggest thinking about budgets that are related to this. And as far as the prescriptions on how to implement, do you need external partners? The answer is no. The system can run very successfully using your existing field workers if those field workers have digital competency. So it really is about put yourself in the shoes of the smallholder, and think about it when you yourself sign up for mobile service. While some people might order their phones and their plans off the internet at this point, the super majority of people still go into a store and buy their phone and ask questions from their Globe or their Viatel or their Indosat sales representatives in the store. So just think about it like that. It's a very basic training. I mean, we conducted our seminars with smallholders in about 2 hours. So we convene them like we saw in the video, and then it took about 2 hours, including questions and snacks and getting to know you and shaking hands and stuff, which was great.
It's also a great opportunity to integrate NGOs if that is in kind of your path, because NGOs do have this wonderful option of scale. And because a lot of times they're based in the areas that you're focused on, they could also be a really relevant central point of contact if people were to run into questions or ongoing issues as they start becoming more acquainted with not only the internet, but even your platform for mFarmer. So I think there's a great opportunity to integrate NGOs if it makes sense to your goal. But also to your point, there's also options to kind of run it. But what we've seen even with our platform is NGOs have been pretty critical to helping to anchor it into communities.
So it's high, like we were saying earlier, it's highly recommended, but it's not a mandate by any means. One last question that I'll answer on the call before we go to, we'll respond to everything in email as well. Does the existing platform support more advanced technologies? So things like satellites and meteorology and sensor technology. The answer is yes. And the question is how do we present that to the smallholder? And that's something that I think is what I would just from experience and having done some of that before with fishermen, it's if done right in terms of, so what we did with smallholder fishermen was we got satellite imagery of phytoplankton on the ocean and presented it in a map and it enabled the fishermen to navigate to their catch and back, and it reduced their catch times by 80%. So it had an immense impact on their livelihoods in terms of their costs and safety. And so it's technically possible to support multiple types of advanced technologies. The challenge that I put out there is why do it, and really focus on the business case for doing so. But it is absolutely supported.
And one thing to add to that is even thinking about more advanced technology, I think there's also an interesting challenge and opportunity, which is thinking about efficient ways of delivering that. Because when you're dealing with imagery or running heavy scripts in the back, that really relies heavily on data. And so even for a farmer in a really remote area, if they're in a data-constrained situation, having a strong payload that you're trying to load from a server somewhere else could really create a bad experience for someone who may not have efficient access. So thinking about ways to really be able to deliver this high-tech information in a way that's bite-sized and efficient is probably going to help you guys in the long run, given that the audience will not have probably the patience, in some cases, the technical capacity to load this. And
the one other aspect is advice on an ongoing basis. That's the fundamental purpose why this is being adopted as a common platform, is that so we can all learn and help each other. So I'd say that there is interpretation and advisory in that sense, where we all want this to succeed.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Jackie. It's been really useful to hear your perspectives on this, to understand why Unilever and why Facebook are doing what you're doing. What we hope is that all of our partners on this webinar have a chance to think about it, think about whether or not a farmer-centric platform is something that you want to participate on and makes sense for either your company or for your working group. We hope that you see the benefits in terms of being able to leverage the strength that Free Basics brings in terms of lowering the cost of access for smallholders, as well as leveraging Facebook's ongoing relationship with these telcos. We hope that you look at what Unilever's put out as a first step and see what the potential is and see how that might make sense and how you might want to adapt or build on it. We hope, again, that you consider collaborating with us, because at the end of the day, where this is the most successful is when we have a critical mass of smallholders. So while we have 520,000 smallholders that all of you are working with through value chain projects today, and that's an initial captive audience because we can use this as an ongoing engagement tool with them. Ultimately, what we want is to use it as a tool to scale, to get to those smallholders who cannot come to a training because culturally women don't show up, or because the distance is simply too far, and let those smallholders have access to the same information as well as eventually markets and inputs.
And I'll just, with a parting word, say anyone who wants to pilot with us, we're happy to.
Wonderful. And with that, thank you so much. Please do reach out to Shangwei Chia if you are interested and you want some follow-up. We will post this webcast on the exchange as well as specific answers to all the questions that were posted. Again, thank you very much for joining us, and we are happy that you are here. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.